Police in Brazil say a fisherman has confessed to fatally shooting an indigenous expert and a British journalist who went missing earlier this month. The suspect led officers to a remote area where human remains were found. The search for Dom Phillips and Bruno Pereira has shed light on friction between indigenous communities, illegal poachers, fishermen, and mining companies operating in the Amazon.
A tragic end to an 11-day search. Brazilian police say the bodies of missing British journalist Dom Phillips and Brazilian indigenous expert Bruno Pereira may have been found. Authorities say a suspect confessed to fatally shooting the two men.
The first suspect arrested in this case confessed to the crime. He described it in detail and pinpointed where he had buried the bodies.
Clues emerged throughout the week. A spot of blood on a suspect's boat, the belongings of the missing men. But authorities drew criticism for dragging their feet on the investigation. Members of Brazil's indigenous agency FUNAI, which Pereira had worked for, held a vigil for the two men. They are protesting what they see as the government's complicity.
Bruno and
Dom were not adventurers. They were exceptional role models at the forefront of their work. They were violently murdered by criminals in the Javari Valley, who the Brazilian state, under the Bolsonaro government, did not combat.
The two men had received threats for their work in the Javari region, renowned for illegal fishing, logging, mining, and drug trafficking. Their killings are a grim reminder to indigenous rights workers in the region of the dangers they face.
For more, let's reach out to journalist João Pedro Soares, who has covered the story extensively. He joins us from Rio de Janeiro. João, this is rather a grim discovery. Two men that still have to be formally identified, if I understand correctly. What more can you tell us about the investigation?
So, Leila, yesterday night, the federal police released the information that one of the suspects, Amarildo Oliveira, he confessed having participated in the crime, killing Bruno and Dom, and he took the police agents to the place where the bodies have been butchered, burned, and afterwards burned. And there, the federal police found these mortal remains of both of them, Bruno and Dom. And now the police is still investigating a second suspect who is being kept in custody. Is the brother of Amarildo, and they are still investigating the participation of a third person. And the mortal remains were took to Brasilia today earlier, so the forensic work can be done in order to confirm if those body remains, those mortal remains, really actually belong to Bruno and Dom, so they can be delivered to the families.
Now, I understand, actually, do we know what the motive is? I understand the investigation is still ongoing.
We are still not sure about the motive. I mean, the police has not stated it officially, but Bruno Pereira, he was a public servant in the Indigenous institution of the Brazilian government. And since the beginning of the Bolsonaro government, he decided not to work anymore, to get a license, and he was working directly with the Indigenous in Vale do Javari. So Bruno was being threatened for a long time, and the man, Amarildo Oliveira, who confessed the crime, he was seen following Bruno and Dom on the following day, on the previous day of the tragedy, and Bruno has conducted operations against illegal mining in the region. He was a very important defendant of the isolated indigenous peoples in the region. So Bruno he was a problem for the criminal groups who act in the region, and more precisely, Amarildo Oliveira is a fisherman, so there is illegal fishing in the region related with drug trafficking. So it's a very complex context, and it was there where Bruno and Dom were killed.
Very intricate indeed. Thank you so much for outlining it and explaining. Journalist João Pedro Soares talking to us from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Thank you so much, João.
Thank you, Leila.